Alright, everybody. Today, I want to start off a series that I'm calling Dunder Mifflin Methods, or Python Dunder Mifflin Methods. Basically, just going to go over all the Python Dunder, which stands for double underscore methods. And we're going to start the series off, or initiate the series, as you may, with the init method. Now, over here on the left is what we're going to be accomplishing today. And we're going to write it out on the right here and go step by step. And I want to hit 2 points as well, because inside the Dunder method init, which stands for initiate, we're going to be talking about two different attributes in classes. One known as the instance attribute, which are a lot of attributes that are not exclusively going to be identified in the init method, but most often will be. And there's a class attribute, which you'll see here as salary. So let's just begin here. So for those of you not familiar with a class, this is a class. Oh, what a class is though? A class is basically a blueprint that tells your code how to make an object. So a class itself is not yet an object, but it tells your code that will instantiate an object, how to make it, what that object can do, and what attributes to give it. So in our example here with a manager, right, we'll start off with the init method itself. What the init method does is instantiates your object. So you can give it things, you can give it attributes. Even if I wanted to as is, I can just say, I can hard code in the name. Name equals string of Bob, right? So now if I say Bob equals manager, right? If I print Bob dot name, right, it will, no surprise, be Bob. And you can see that down here. It is Bob, right? Okay. Now, you don't want to hard code things like that. The whole point of a class is to be the building blocks necessary to build custom objects. So what we'd probably want to do, as you can already see to the left here, is we're going to want to be able to instantiate a name and pick a name. So right now we can say, okay, this manager has a custom name, right? So now we've got to pass that in as a parameter. You can see we can just do like a function, right? Like a normal function call, but just know that init is always going to be called first when a class is made. Well, okay, that's not 100% true. We'll get to it. For now, init is the first thing that's called. It's actually the second. Well, if you really want to get specific, it's like the fourth, I believe. But just for now, it's the first thing that's called, and you're passing in the parameters required. If a class requires parameters, this is where it's referencing, and it's saying, okay, what do I need in the init to create this class and or to initialize this class? And right now it just says name, so we'll give it the name. We're going to call this guy Bob. Now you'll see that we're passing it all through, right? Boom, his name is still Bob. So managers, and sometimes you want your class to maybe you do want to hard code in attributes, and that is totally possible. You can, however, say if you want self dot salary, right, equals 60,000. Got the right zeros there. Okay, right? You can do it like this, and I will get to what self is in a second here. But we can do this, and this works, right? So you'll notice that I'm just going to copy this over now. But you'll notice that they both have $60,000. And that works, and that's great. But you see, we're not being as explicit as we could be. This is more so saying like, oh, the instance has 60,000. When in reality, the class, we want the class itself. So no matter who uses the manager method, we want them to have this $60,000 salary. So just as a convention, we're going to put it up in the class methods, It's just a bit more explicit as to saying, hey, managers have a salary of $60,000, and we can. It's sort of a better place to hard code in values, in my opinion. So we're going to leave that there. Now, so what is self? You'll notice that salary does not have self, and self.name or name has self attached to it here. We still can access salary by self, so I can print self.salary, right? And that's how I access it. I can't just access it out of nowhere, and yeah, you'll see it. So self is the instance of the class. So you'll notice how when I'm creating the class, I'm not passing in anything for self. I'm actually skipping self essentially and just going straight to name. So what that's doing is it's assigning Bob or Joe straight to name because self is sort of taken care of behind the scenes and said, okay, what's actually being assigned self is Bob. So over here is what's self. So now every time you reference Bob, you're actually referencing self. So in a way, what's actually getting filled in here is Bob, and then the quote or the string Bob is the name. That's kind of behind the scenes what's actually going on. Obviously, this is just pseudocode, but as a convention, we always use self here, and I would stick to that. But you can see that's just how it's going on behind the scenes. Is it saying, okay, this Bob here, that's why every time I reference Bob.name, right, it's actually going into this Bob instance where I created Bob, right? And I can erase this stuff, and you'll see how only the things, not Joe doesn't come up, but Bob comes up because I'm referencing Bob. I'll clear this for you real quick, just in case, right? So I'm running it, and Bob, not Joe, doesn't reference Joe. It's referencing Bob. And so inside the init is a great place to just do little tweaks to your things. Like on the left here, easy little examples. Maybe I want to just make sure that everyone's names are going to come in as lowercase, right? So I can just do name.lower, and then now if I bring this all back, you can see how I'm doing it with Joe or whatever. They're uppercase or capitalized, but then it's going to normalize them back down into all lowercase values, which can be helpful. Again, just a quick example. But so that's what init does. It just instantiates the object. And I hope to see you guys in the next video.